Hello everybody, this is Pastor Lynn once again doing another sermon recap video on our sermon from Ephesians chapter 6 verses 1 through 9. And in this sermon we talked about the relationship between children and parents and how fundamental that relationship is in a family and in a church and in society. And it starts off talking about children obeying their parents in the Lord. And the key here is the phrase "in the Lord," that parents train up their children in the instruction and training of the Lord. But children obey their parents, and the limitation is that it's in the Lord. In other words, parents cannot ask children or demand children to do things that are unethical or immoral. That would be outside of the Lord, not in the relationship of the Lord. And parents should not frustrate or anger their children. And what this means is that parents are there to help their children to flourish, to nurture their children, especially spiritually. Today's parents, we often focus on things like their education and their career, which are very important, of course, but I also feel like what we lack oftentimes is that spiritual growth. And I talked about how parents are the very first disciple makers in the home. Yes, the church is tasked with the responsibility of helping people to grow closer to God, to be spiritually mature, and to grow in their faith. But this happens primarily at home and not at the church. And so parents are the ones who are the primary people responsible for that job. And talked briefly a little bit about slavery and the ancient world, and didn't talk too much about that in the sermon. But what Paul is going through and what Paul wants to present essentially to his readers is that we as the church are salt and light to go into this world, to bring God's love, His compassion, and His healing into this world, into the dark places of this world that are hurting, that need to hear from Him. And we can't do this, first of all, if we're not the church. We can't do this if our very own families are hurting, if our families are not stable, if our families are not being trained up in the ways of the Lord. How can we then go out into the world and be salt and light to the world when we ourselves are not representative of Christ's love? And so that is what Paul wants to paint a picture of, is the family as a cohesive unit, family meaning even the people who work for the family. In Paul's day, it was the slaves. That everybody is on the same page, everybody loves one another, everybody has mutual respect for one another, everybody cares for one another. And when people who aren't Christians see this, then they too will say, hey, I want that. I want to be a part of that. And I want my family to be like that. I want my household to be like that. How can I have that? And then we can introduce them to Christ. So that is the picture that Ephesians is trying to paint for us in this passage. Well, once again, thank you for watching our recap video. I hope that it was helpful for you. If it was, please share it. And we hope to see you at Faith sometime. Thank you very much.